What up, gamers? Today we are finally doing a follow-up to the series that I started a few years back, and that is the real-life Minecraft block series. So this is the block that started it all. This is the grass block from Minecraft. We used literal dirt mixed with epoxy and grass mixed with epoxy. We put it all together and we made this really awesome block. And I love the way these turn out. They're very cartoony. It's a literal, cube. Looks like just like out of Minecraft, but it's also ultra realistic at the same time. So it gives it this really surreal, interesting look that I just love the style of. Today we're finally going to be following it up with doing the Minecraft gold ore block. Let's talk about it. So here's the plan. Instead of using real gold and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this project, we're going to be using pyrite. You might know it as fool's gold because it looks a lot like gold, and it's got this really amazing detailed geometric structure to it that I think will look awesome in the finished block. And then over here I've got two different variants of the kind of gravel section of the ore that we're going to be using. So these first ones, these are a colorful, more cartoony, rounded river pebble. These are not like realistic. This isn't what it would look like in real life, obviously, in the ground, but it's more of a cartoony look, and it's a Minecraft block. I think that's totally fine. I think the look of this when it's done is going to be very cool. And then over here, this is more of a realistic version where we've just got this gray granite that should look really cool and a lot more natural. Both of them are going to have a very different look, but they're both going to look cool in their own ways. We're going to put it all in one of these molds. We're going to be using this Astro Tech epoxy to hold it all together. We'll mix it up with these popsicle sticks. And I think we should be selling this whole kit on our supplies website too. So check the link in the description for that. But without further ado, there's a rundown of the project. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, first we're going to mix up some of our Astro Tech epoxy. This has about a 30-minute working time, so it gives us plenty of time to do everything we need. But I actually ended up mixing way more resin than I actually needed. This was for 2 cubes and it was still almost double the amount that I needed. So next time I'll go a little less overboard. You need to be really thorough when you're stirring. You want to scrape the sides, the bottom, the inside, everywhere. You want to get it really nice and mixed. And once it looks like it's completely mixed, I usually spend about another minute or 2 mixing it just to be completely sure that we've got it completely mixed and completely activated. Now we've got a lot of bubbles in the resin. Because this does have such a long working time, most of these bubbles will make their way up to the top, and with the use of a heat gun or a blowtorch, you could pop them easily. But because I've got a vacuum chamber, I'm going to go ahead and use that. The vacuum pump removes all of the air from the chamber, allowing all of those bubbles to expand to be much, much larger than they would be otherwise. And that causes them to float to the top and pop, and it leaves us with crystal clear resin. Now, if you don't have a vacuum chamber, don't worry, because this resin has such a long working time, a lot of those bubbles would have just naturally worked their way to the top, and then using a heat gun or a blowtorch, you can pop them while they're up there. So the vacuum will give you better results, but without one, you should be just fine. Now let's get going on the first cube. We're going to start out with the granite one. I'll just place a couple of pieces down at the bottom of the mold and then pour in a bit of resin. But I'm being careful to leave space for the pyrite right where I want it. I'm not just throwing it all in there randomly. I'm being very specific on where I put the pyrite because I want it to show up in the best spots. And I want it to resemble the actual Minecraft ore block as best as possible. Then from here, the process is pretty simple and it's super satisfying actually. I'm just building up the mold layer by layer. I put in a few chunks of the granite. I strategically place a piece or 2 of the pyrite, and I just go from there, fill it up with a little bit more resin and repeat. It's actually really satisfying putting in a new layer and then covering the whole thing in resin and just slowly watching it envelop the whole thing. It's really cool. Now we're getting really close to the top, and I'm still being really careful with my placement of the pyrite. I'm orienting each piece to show off its best side. That way we get the best looking block. Then I'll just top it off with resin all the way to the brim, but being very, very careful not to allow it to overflow. Now we're basically finished with this first one, but I am going to sort of babysit it for the next 10 or 20 minutes. There's going to be some air bubbles trapped in there. They're going to work their way up to the top, and I'll use a blowtorch to pop those. And if there's a lot of bubbles, what you'll notice is as they go to the top and pop, you might have your resin level lower just a little. So keep an eye on that. You might want to top it up a couple times after you're done. Now let's get started on the next version of the block. That's the one with the river pebbles. This one's going to be a lot of fun. I love the little rounded shape they have and the super bright saturated colors that the rocks have. And again, my process will be super similar. I'm just going up layer by layer, strategically placing my pieces of pyrite and pouring in some of the river pebbles, and then filling all that up with some resin and repeating until we work our way up to the top. Now we're getting close here, and I'm realizing if we've got 2 blocks of gold ore, if we could just smelt this, that's enough to make a gold sword, which would at least last us about like 6 seconds. So if anyone down in the comments knows of a way to perhaps smelt these gold ore blocks and turn them into a sword, that would be very much appreciated. All right, that's everything done and in place. I did notice a couple of the pebbles sticking up a little bit higher than I wanted to, so I'm just kind of cramming them down in there with my popsicle stick. Now after waiting 5 or 10 minutes, I'm hitting it with a blowtorch to pop any of the bubbles that we're able to raise up to the top. So here they are. They just turned out awesome. I love the way they look, and it's such a fun project to do. I love working with resin. It makes for some really cool art pieces. Like I was saying earlier, we will have these kits available for sale, so just check the link in the description for that. Oh, and don't forget to check out the Waterjet Channel's video. They made a massive grass block. It looks really cool, actually. We'll also have that linked in the description. And if you guys watching have any suggestions or ideas of other Minecraft blocks you want me to try out, definitely let me know down in the description. And I also want to know which of the 2 blocks you liked best, the one that's more hyper-realistic that we did with the granite, or the one that's more cartoony with the rounded off colorful river pebbles. Okay, I think I've asked enough of you guys. I'll stop talking. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.